Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our AYS program for today. Joyce Thrower is going to give us a brief introduction to our program.
Hi, everyone. This is Adventist Youth Program, and I'm sure you hear the youth in the background, my grandchildren, but they'll be gone soon. um, I'm Joyce, and hopefully we have some members from Shiloh joining us. But this afternoon, we want to talk about mental illness. It's something that has been in the news and in our lives or in someone's life that we know of quite a lot since the pandemic and even before then, but not as much as after and during the pandemic. And we just want to talk about some of the things that cause mental illness and also the effects of it, and what can we do as parents, as young people, as far as recognizing some of the signs, and also how we can get involved with friends or someone else that we know that um, may be going through situations or problems in their life. And this afternoon, before we have prayer by Elder Tony Middleton, I would just like each person to introduce themselves. We have Conchella Austin, Kanisha Clark, Michelle Gordon, and we have Jessica. What's your last name, Jessica?
Amaro.
Jessica Amaro, who I really and truly appreciate, because another guest that we had was not able to come. She had some situation, something going this afternoon, but I really, really, truly appreciate you. And they said you should never let a person know that they were your second thought. So
Okay.
just forget what I said that you were out. Okay. Thanks a lot. Conchella's shaking her head. But hey, I'm just trying to be honest. Sometimes I think I might be mentally ill, but today I don't want to be that way. Okay. And I hope that you can help us all out, especially me. Okay, Tony. Um, After he prays, then each of you can go in the order. Let's see, our guests first, our special guests first, and then Kanisha Clark and Michelle Gordon, and then Conchella. She's going to moderate. But if each of you could tell something about yourselves so that the audience can become familiar, just a little familiar with you, I would appreciate it.
Let's pray. God, we thank you for the opportunity we have to come together. We ask, oh God, you bless us, you would enlighten us, but through these your vessels, you will help us, is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Is it on me? I guess it's on me. So are we doing introductions now? Is it on me? I hope I can't see anybody else. So I guess it's on me. I am Jessica Amaro. I'm a mental health educator and author. And I'm from the Tri-County area.
Hello, I'm Michelle Gordon, and I'm a professional counselor, and I've been working with the mental health population for the last 15 years.
Hello, my name is Kanisha Clark, and I am a special education teacher. I teach children with emotional disabilities here in the Charleston area.
Mm-hmm. And I'm Conchella Austin, and I am the AYS assistant. Okay, and first we're going to jump into the causes of mental illness. If we can have Sister Jessica give us a little introduction to that.
Awesome. So actually, since I know that we have a lot of viewers, I was told a lot of the viewers are our youth. I think it's important that we start with the definition of mental health. So what is mental health? We all have mental health, but mental health is our ability to cope with the way we act, what we're thinking, and what we're feeling. So I think that's a great place for parents to start when discussing with kids, what is mental health and what does it affect? And also understanding the very simple generic definition for mental health illness. It's having difficulties outside yourself, things that affect your ability to think, behave, and the way you feel. Does that sum up your question? Answer the question?
Yes, very good definition of that. Michelle Gordon, would you like to add anything with that?
No.
All right, so now that we have the definition of mental illness, now if we can go over some of the causes of mental illness.
Okay. So we could start with the buzzword of the year right now, which is trauma. Trauma being defined as things that happen externally that we can't handle internally. So a lot of times, some mental health is the result of trauma, traumatic experiences and events. Sometimes mental illness is the result of just chemicals in your body. We have something in our body called lithium, and when you don't have enough of it, and you have an imbalance, it can cause bipolar disorder, anxiety, and a whole bunch of plethora of things. And then you go into genetics. Sometimes mental disorders are the byproduct of genetic disorders or defects. Anybody want to add to that?
Michelle, would you like to add to that? Our causes of mental illness?
Sorry, I had to get off mute. I apologize. Well, everything that she said was actually correct. Well, one thing that people should know with the causes of mental health, everybody is not born with mental health issues. Some people, whenever mental illness develops later on in life, they don't believe that it's mental health, that they have mental health issues. So that's something that's very important also.
And to add to what she said, just being well versed, I might be off with these numbers a tiny bit, but I know in a recent study, especially looking at adolescents in foster care, most mental illness doesn't emerge or isn't apparent till you actually hit puberty. So we think a lot of times when a child is acting out and we give that 10-year-old or that 11-year-old that diagnosis, but the truth is most mental illnesses are not prevalent until you go through puberty up until about 24. So sometimes we mistake mental illness for the symptoms or byproduct of just a child needing to mature. That's why it's really important that you seek outside help. I think that's one of the things that we're doing better with as we're, especially this year, making it, getting rid of the stigma again surrounding getting that additional support. But we definitely need to focus on getting support. And if you don't know, you have to reach out to someone else, whether it's a school counselor, a therapist, or even just talking to your primary care physician for your child and saying we're having these issues. But no one has all the answers. Even being a mental health educator, I don't have all the answers.
Most parents are afraid to and never be afraid to ask for help. If you're feeling some sort of way, always ask for help or explain to someone your feelings. Just because you're having some sort of feelings, it does not mean that you're crazy. It does not mean that you're in your right mind. It could be something simple, like she explained earlier. They could just be an off balance, just a light chemical off balance. Something I've worked with elementary school kids. Something simple as changing your diet helps sometimes.
Oh, wow. So can mental illness also be caused by a traumatic experience such as trauma to the brain?
Yes.
Yes. There are
Um,
several different things that can offset mental illness. Trauma, that's one thing. And it doesn't have to be physical trauma that can set off mental illness. Sometimes substance abuse can also set it off. It, just like I said in the beginning, it's not always something that you're born with, it's something that develops later on in life.
And to add to what she says, and you said earlier, does trauma affect mental illness? You got to think about it like this. So I defined trauma earlier as being something externally that you can't deal with internally. So what happens is we're conditional. We begin, how do I say this? Nurture versus nature. We now start to nurture these new behaviors, or now we're always in fight or flight mode every day because every day you're coming home from school or these things are happening in your home. So every day you're on high alert. So even when you don't need to be on high alert, now your brain thinks that it does. So a lot of times what we see in mental illness, we see in mental health, that we identify as mental illness is that physical response, because now you've conditioned your body to be on high alert. Just like she said with using substances, your brain is now overly active or lulled out, and you've conditioned your body to believe that it works this way. I mean, there is an extensive study, adverse. It was done by Kaiser Commente. It's adverse childhood experiences, and it shows how abuse during childhood affects your weight. It affects everything about you, whether you smoke, how long you live. It's an amazing study. But those things I think we need to take into account, and we can counteract these responses to trauma. But like she said earlier, we have to be able to talk about it. Go ahead.
Also, I would like to add what you ladies have said is that these issues happen to many of us. When you take that adverse childhood survey, many of us have had traumas that oftentimes we could just brush off, but divorce, death of a family member, homelessness, those things can change the way we think, the way our mind works. And so I think it's just good to know that just because you've had these traumas, there's still help out there for you, that you can still get the help that you need. Oftentimes we just, especially in our community, we just want to just don't think about it, just keep moving. But oftentimes some people can't get over that hurdle, and it's difficult to deal with, especially as children, whereas adults, we may self-medicate, do other things. But as children, they're going to display their emotions and their hurt in different ways that would make them make the counselors and stuff come to them and try to diagnose them with a mental illness or something like that.
I think of when we're thinking about children, like just really simple thing to remember, especially with our children. If they can't tell you, they're going to show you.
Yes.
So we have to pay attention to those behaviors. When you said that, I just thought about, I remember hearing that a long time ago. If they can't tell you, they're definitely going to show you. So pay
All
attention to
behavior
those
is
behaviors.
communication.
And sometimes it's the whole trauma-informed approach. It's not about asking what's wrong with you. It's about asking what happened. Because that's usually at the root of all of these behaviors.
We can't hear her.
Can't hear you, Joyce. I know Joyce was saying something, but I can't hear her.
Can't hear me?
Now I
We hear
can.
you
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, now we
Yes.
can.
Okay. I was just saying that is good to know, because most of the time that's what we do ask. What is wrong with you? Why are you acting out? Instead of what happened to cause you to act this way.
Another thing also that I know in our community, we're big on the parent is always right. You do what I say because you're a child. But we need to develop better relationships with our kids so they can feel comfortable to tell us what's going on, what's wrong, who bothered them, who touched them. You know, we have to have more open conversations so that kids can tell us their feelings.
I agree with you totally. And I think one of those things is you prepare for the conversation before you actually need to have the conversation. You cannot, get home and think little Teresa going to tell you exactly what happened if you've never asked her about her day on the prior days. So it's one of those things you have to be, as parents, and I'm a parent, you have to be very intentional about having those conversations. One of the things that we have not done well within our community with addressing is touch period, from children around the same age. So my thing is, there's a thin line between curiosity and abuse, and a lot of times we have these interactions, and our kids don't want to get their cousin that they play with every week in trouble because there was never a conversation before the event explaining, this is where what we do that's appropriate and what's not going to work. And then now you have your child who's having these mixed feelings about the person that they play with every week, and they don't want to be in trouble. So it's like one of those things where you have to have the conversation before it's time to actually have a conversation, or a difficult conversation.
I don't know if the audience has any questions, but maybe someone in the room with you, Conchella, can check the feed and see if there's anyone, if they're on Facebook, to see if anyone has any questions. But I would like to ask Kanisha, what is it like teaching children with emotional needs?
I think it's more like a roller coaster. You never know what you're going to get. When they come in from day to day, I just make sure you check in with them. Like the lady said, you have to build relationships with them, talk to them all the time, ask them what's going on. And usually children, they'll tell you most things. Also, I feel that it's important to build the social emotional learning, reiterate what's, how you should act, what you should say, how you should deal with these emotions. How do we actually deal with these emotions? Tell them your story. And so they'll be willing to share more with you. So talking about responsibility, relationships, conflict resolution, all those things help with that. And like I said, children deal with adult issues. They're dealing with taking care of their siblings, and they're in middle school. I have, students who have to take care of their siblings at night while their parents go to work. Then they're up all night, and you wonder why they sleep in class. It's because they were up all night taking care of their siblings. They wouldn't go to sleep, or they may have to work with a parent, do different things. So just being aware that it's not just always their intent to be disruptive or cause problems. It's just they don't know how to deal with it. So divorce at home, parents on drugs, they have to deal with all these things. The way that they have to live in their neighborhood, they're on edge. You have to fight going home, walking down the street. You have to, your people talk to you crazy. You got to talk back. You can't be no punk. So when they come to school, they talk just like that. And so you're like, this is a safe space. You don't have to be on defense all the time. So it's always a challenge.
All right, we have one question from the audience. It says, once you're diagnosed with mental illness, can you be cured? As Jessica laughs.
I am not laughing at the question.
Oh.
I think, well, go ahead.
You want to? Go ahead. I'll let you answer first, and I'll piggyback.
You're going to answer. You're going to extend this answer. I think I want to make a statement first, not an actual answer. That coping, and we have this mentality in our community. You just need to get over it. Like, we just need to get over whatever happened. Mm-hmm. The truth is, healing and being able to handle your mental issues is not a linear experience. It's not just you're here today and you're going to be here tomorrow and then you're going to be 10 steps further the next day. It doesn't work that way. We have triggers, we have events. We're going to always have things outside of ourselves that we have to cope with. So I think what my answer would be, not even a no or yes, is that you will be better tomorrow than you were yesterday if you continue to work on it. And things that used to bother you won't bother you, and you'll figure out how to cope as long as you're doing the work. If you're doing the work, you'll continue to move forward.
Well, that's I'll piggyback. That's something like I was going to say. She's 100% right in my book. You're never 100% treated, but you will be stabilized as long as you do your part. What's important is we have to do our part. Whether it's taking our medication, going to counseling, expressing our feelings. Whenever you meet someone that's they say, hey, I'm 10 years clean, they're still considered an addict, because
Mhm.
every day that they're sober it's a new day. So it's something that you have to work on for the rest of your life. But you can stabilize yourself. But like she said, you're going to have triggers. We have triggers every day. Even though we're not on any mental health medications.
Right.
Stress is the number one trigger with everybody. I like to eat. I'm always on a diet, but every day is something that I have to work towards. Some days I'm weaker than other days, so it's just something that you have to continue working with. If I stick to my diet plan, okay, I can lose weight, but if I don't, I'm going to be fat. So you have to look at, you can look at it like that. As long as you wake up every morning and you take your medication, you come up with you work on your coping skills. If Miss Joyce makes you mad, you go in your journal and you use those coping skills, you're better today.
I agree with her. Whatever you're seeking is also seeking you. So if you're seeking to be balanced, then you'll be balanced. If you're seeking the chaos and trying to get back to where you used to be, then that's what you're gonna find. The next question. Can we look at the next question?
Yes, we can go to the next question.
I gotta answer
My
that one.
audience. The question is, are there programs that extend from school to the home that help parents help with the child at home?
Yes. Several.
There is a wonderful service. I'm not even going to tell a service name a service provider. There's a service called RBHS. RBHS. These services include psychosocial rehabilitation, behavior modification, and family support. This structure of services was built specifically to work with the clients and their family in the home. So my thing is, you need something that you need a service that besides doing family therapy or therapy individually with the client, you need something to come into your home. There's a service called RBHS, and it has 3 different categories, and it is specific to getting that extra service geared towards mental health in your home.
Okay. Any other programs?
There are several other services that does exactly what she says, but parents, you have to be 100% committed to these services. I used to do these services for years from South Carolina to Georgia, but families have to be committed, because when they come in that home, they will see who you really are. A lot of times going into the home, I found out that the child was not the problem, it was the parent. So you have to be receptive to wanting these services when they come in this house in your home, and they tell you what they see wrong and what you need to do. It's usually, it's not always the child. I hate to say it.
I want to piggyback on what she said. I will say 99% of the time, the problem starts with us. When I say us, I say I'm including me because I'm a parent as well. So if my 14-year-old is, I'm watching her struggle with being able to communicate and stand up for herself, I am the source of that problem because I've overspoken her. I've not given her a platform to speak up for herself. So we have to look at ourselves in relation to our children's problems. So I agree 100% with what she said.
Okay. We have another question. It says, are there specific questions to ask teens in order to start a discussion on traumas?
Can you repeat that?
It said, are there specific questions to ask teens in order to start a conversation or discussion on traumas, etc.?
Start simple. So one of the things that I do when I work with like teens, like I said, I'm doing a workshop like this, but it was all kids. I would do a question like, if I could eliminate one thing out of my, my routine of my life for the rest of my life, what would that thing be and why? And I would say, for me, I just can't stand, doing laundry, whatever the case may be. And you started with a generic conversation. You have to know your child for your child to disclose to you. That's just how it works. It's one of those things where if they can't predict your responses to a certain extent, they may not come to you to get support.
Right.
Both of my children know that I'm going to do whatever it takes. So that means that if my daughter may not tell me something because she knows, if my mom goes there, let me try to fix this myself because she's going to go way beyond what I would. Or my son may come to me and say, you know what, let me just call my mom before I even do anything because I know she's going to fix it. They have to know you, but that works through, like how we talk about building a rapport with our coworkers, building a rapport with our friends. We have to build this rapport with our children as well. Go ahead.
No, you go.
Was there another?
Are there specific signs we should be looking?
We have another question. Do people commit suicide because a friend or family member does?
Say the question again.
That's a kind of broad question.
Yeah,
It's a possibility. It could be that could be true from the stress, but
yeah.
I guess it would depend on the individual.
I think that's an interesting question. I'm pretty sure that comes from a specific experience. What I would say is do a little bit of research. That's how I would respond to that question. Because I think when we think of suicide as the end all, it's an end all occurrence. I don't think it's. I think I would. I don't know. I think I need more insight about that question. I don't even got a proper response. I'm sorry.
I think maybe the question comes because when we notice if one person commits suicide, it just seems like there's a string of individuals who do it afterwards. So, I mean, several people we know, famous people, committed suicide. Do you think maybe they were influenced by someone else or influenced by the person who committed suicide that they read about or knew about? I think that's what they may be referring to.
With suicide, I think suicide is a lot. A lot of people we don't like to talk about. A lot of things we don't like to talk about when dealing with suicide. And everybody handles stress differently. I can look at someone and say they have everything in the world, but they're really hurting inside. Suicide, I think, is just kind of different on every case is kind of different.
I don't have a response for this one. This one is so. It's an
So
interesting
vague,
question. I think sometimes my response, I do have a response, is I think we look at these situations and because it's so permanent, we can't talk to the person that was having those issues. We want to make assumptions about why they did. We'll I mean, unless there's a detailed note, we'll never truly understand or why. But I think that there are so many other factors in play on why a person would take their lives, and far more than just because someone else did it, because it's so permanent. I think that's the best answer I can come up with.
Did they answer the question?
Okay.
No, it was too broad. How you can tell.
There's another question that we have. How do you stop meds that we need but present mental illness as side effects?
Ooh. Ooh, that's a good one. Go ahead.
Let's speak with your physician then.
Yeah, you have to speak with your physician. But my thing is, homeopathic, there's a lot of holistic, I don't know where you live, but there's a lot of holistic individuals with MDs that focus on holistic practices. I would seek out that information. I think that's a little bit above my pay grade.
There's one up there.
Oh, that was one for Joyce. They're asking if we could possibly have a mental health day at Shiloh for the members. Another question, can you prevent mental health problems?
There are things that you can do to better manage the way you think, feel, and behave. I think there's things that we can introduce to our kids at any age. I think like we use the word mindfulness, but all mindfulness is literally a series of self-care techniques. Like it's self-care. So teaching our children to get what they need, whether it is a break, a breath, a time away from people, or friends that actually support them. I think we need to do a better job, and that's me included, of making sure our kids understand taking care of themselves so that they're not like most of us at 30, 40, 50 trying to figure out, I got to make some time for myself. I need to have my self-care Fridays. When you know what, it should have been an automatic thought. So if we give it to them, I think that will help them better manage. There's going to always be, she said earlier, there's always going to be stress.
Yes. Very
I have
true.
a question for Michelle. Another question for Michelle. I know that you used to work in DJJ, and I've heard you talk about some situations where young people would do self-harm, and they would do things that, I mean, just to me were unbelievable. I assume that that's a form of mental illness. How do you all deal with situations like that?
I wouldn't say it's a form of mental illness. Michelle's going to answer the question, but it's a byproduct of mental illness. Go ahead, Michelle.
Oh, byproduct. Okay.
No, that's fine. No, and it also could be a learned behavior also. It's also some people, I guess you would say, a mental illness because they get a thrill from it. But that's when you go into teaching coping skills. You get into asking feelings, having, making yourself or having someone, when they have someone that they feel is a safe haven for them, so they can express those feelings whenever they feel that those triggers are coming on, you know. And that goes back, I guess, with having that open relationship with your kids, our family members, where they feel safe to come and talk to you and express things to you.
I agree.
So how can children or young people help each other?
Teach our children how to be good friends.
Yes, and supportive. That's the number one right there. Teaching someone how to be a good friend, and teaching an adult, stop being so judgmental. Everybody's going to fall and make mistakes in their life. But if you can't give a word of encouragement on how they can do better, if you can't help come up with a solution, you are part of the problem. So just always remember to always be a solution, or stay strength based.
Well, don't you
That's
think maybe it's because we are so afraid that we may lose our children or something's going to happen to them that
We're
we
afraid what
just.
other people going to think and what other people going to say about us. That's
I
what
agree
we're
with
afraid
her.
of.
I work with
We're
parents
not
doing services. Parents are more the parents I've worked with. I can only speak from my experience, and I did Be My Family Support Cycle, all of it. Parents are more afraid of what, even women, what my mother's going to say about the way my child is behaving, what my aunt's going to say. No, I think it's a lot of that. You got to take yourself out of it. I think sometimes we're also very irrational and unrealistic. My thing is, most of us did not wake. I know most of us a lot of people use profanity. I don't know which one of we do, but we didn't just wake up at 18 and say, I'm gonna use profane words. And I think like there was a client I once had long time ago, and his mother was so upset about the profanity. I said, but did you wake up and just start using profanity, or were you a 16-year-old teenager using profanity as well? So how do we address this? How do we address this in a way that makes sense? Because saying it's the worst thing in the world as if it's not something that you've done, I think we have to remember what it feels like to be at that age. I know like I journal a lot. And I remember writing this, like my daughter was really small. I'm going to remember what it was like to be 14, 15, 16, because that's the most valuable knowledge not all the stuff I have now. That is the most valuable knowledge that I actually have.
Do you agree with them, Kanisha?
Kanisha, what you think?
Yes, like the Bible says, by beholding we become changed. So if you hear, like she said, profanity all through your neighborhood, all in your house, what do you expect your child to do? That's what they're going to do. They do what they see. You have to whatever they see you do, that's what they model. So I know at school, I teach my children, my students, hey, use some different words. Let's learn some different words instead of cursing people out. Let me teach you some new vocabulary words that you can use instead of curse words. They're like, oh, okay. Yeah, this how you tell somebody off without cursing them out. And so those are some things that you can do. And like they said, be an example. Tell them how you were. My students want to know, Miss Clark, did you do this? Did you fight in school? Did you do this? Yes, I did. And if you be honest with them, they're like, oh, okay. So it's not so abnormal that you too were once a teenager, that you too had struggles and you had to deal with them and you had to work through them and things like that.
She's right.
And then they'll come back. Then they'll come back and say, "Oh, Mom, you did it." So,
or I think they'll understand more. Like, okay, it's not just me alone. It's not just I'm the problem. Now we can't continue to do this because you're gonna get older, and they're gonna put you in jail. They're gonna get the handcuffs. You're not gonna get suspended anymore. You're gonna get locked up. So there's consequences to your behavior. So you just teach them. Middle school, they might, suspend you. But you get to high school, you get these cuffs. So you have to learn how to deal with that before that happens.
Oh my goodness. Another question that we have is, how do you know if you're not well?
Say it again.
How do you know if you're not well?
It's a feeling.
Well.
It's also a feeling.
How do you know if you're not well? I think I want to answer that like in a deep way, and I can't think.
I think it's similar to mental health. Is similar to, you have to know about like your physical health. How you know you're out of shape? You see it, and you just have to be aware that you have to continually work on it. Continually exercise, continually eat right, continually do these things. And I think with mental health, if you continue have open communication with your children, you teach them the social emotional behaviors, behavior modification, continue doing it. I don't think it's something that you can stop. You keep doing it. And I think that will keep you healthier and more stable in your mind. But
can you read the question again? Can you read the question again?
How do you know if you're unwell, mentally unwell?
well, can I say something right here?
No, go
Take,
ahead.
for instance, I don't like winter at all. I despise winter time. And when I don't see the sunshine for several days, I get depressed. So I think, okay, after a couple of days, hey, Joyce, something's wrong. And I feel that I got to shake it off. And I just, I pray. Naturally, I know how to pray now, and ask God, please take this feeling away from me. But I just assume that at that time, I'm not well. Is that true? Because I get down. But once the sun shines, when the sun comes out, I'm a different person.
Can I say one thing? I know you're going to nail it on the head. But the best way for me personally to answer that question, if you have to ask that, you're probably not well.
I agree with, and that's what I was thinking. Like, I wanted to see if you're. So listen, I think that we are so afraid of what the answer, and I say we, so I'm talking to everybody. We are sometimes so afraid of what the response is going to be that we don't even ask for help. When the truth is, you might be one statement, one coping skill away from being where you need to be. So I think the answer to Adam's shit, I think if you ask that question, you at some point you need to begin discussing your feelings with someone that you feel comfortable discussing those feelings with. And there's a lot of assessments out there that you can take online or in somebody's office. I got a couple in one of my books. Take an assessment and see where you are.
Thank you.
All right. I'll check. Are there any more questions from the audience? Okay. Another question was, how can I speak to and help someone with a mental health problem like depression or anxiety?
Google the term trauma sensitive language. I teach you guys, so I'm a glossary. Google the word, the phrase trauma sensitive language, because a lot of times there's some work to be done on your part with communicating, because you don't want to re-traumatize someone. You don't want to push them to a place where they don't want to disclose or talk to you anymore. So my thing is trauma sensitive language, and start observing how they respond to what you say. Some people are okay with you saying it's going to be okay. Some people are disturbed when you say it's going to be okay. So you have to pay, not only do you need to use trauma sensitive language, you need to pay attention to how they respond, because every person is not the same and every person doesn't want to be dealt with the same. Go ahead.
I was going to say that don't dismiss them, especially for like things of anxiety. You may see it as irrational, but they don't see it like that. So if you have anxiety for certain things, you have to, like she said, it depends on how you talk to them, make them feel safe, calm. The Bible talks about it, so it's been happening for a long time. Be anxious for nothing. So by prayer and supplication, let your request be made known unto God. So people have been anxious since Bible times. So those things happened, and we just have to learn how to deal with it and talk to people. I'm anxious. Don't let no frog be outside, because I'm gonna be a little irrational. What's happening? Some people don't want to go over bridges, public speaking, things like that. So there's a lot of anxieties that people have that you just have to know how to deal with them, talk to them, and build those relationships to help them to overcome those things.
I think I want to add to that. I don't want to mess up the way I say this. I read this recently. It was like something like, it's not your job to push people out of their comfort zone. It is your responsibility to make them comfortable enough, make the situation comfortable enough for them to possibly begin to move. Something like that. But I think we want to all, I think we do this thing a lot where that person's my assignment and we think we have to push them. That's not how it works. Helping someone get where they need to go has nothing to do with pushing them, but encouraging them to take that step on their own.
Why do you think Blacks as a race, we tend to try to ignore mental issues, mental illness? Normally, as far as I have recognized, other races, well, especially whites, they will be quick. They're quick to go and get a counselor. My child needs to see a psychologist, and they don't think anything of it. I need to talk to my counselor today. But us, is it because we think we're strong, or we try to be strong, that we kind of ignore doing things like that? We just kind of frown up our faces at that.
Can I add? Because I literally said this yesterday. I know you look at what you want to go. I'm gonna say one thing, then you can go.
Okay, go ahead.
We think the struggle is necessary in everything we do. We think if you're not struggling, then it's not going to work, and that's not true. Some things you will struggle to greatness, but some things, we don't work for favor. We work from our favor. So I think we covenant. If I'm struggling, oh yeah, I just gonna have to struggle through this next thing. I think we covenant the struggle. And we do that with our mental. We do that with we do that with money. We do it with everything. Go ahead.
Absolutely right. Now, this may be the wrong call for me to say this on. But
anyway.
Can I be real?
Be real.
Okay. So one, of course, we care too much of how people are going to label us, the stigma that's out there. And two, we got too much religion. We feel that if we pray, God gonna push it up off us, because that's nothing but the devil.
I agree with her.
And God, I feel like God had, I feel like, yes, we're supposed to pray first, but we're also, God has trained people out here to help us. And I think if in the churches and if our pastors and leaders talk about mental health more, I think that, we will understand, because since I've been little, whenever, you got certain places, they say, oh, just put some oil. I had, when I was a behavior counselor at school, a lady gave me some oil and said, when they come in your office, just put this on their head. No, these kids really, people really have problems. Yes, you pray for them, but you go and you get them evaluated. You don't be embarrassed.
I think to add to what she says, and this is not to push what I do, but I do a trauma and resilience certification program. And I've had maybe one person in ministry actually ever come into that program. But I would think that, you know what, I think the church is a perfect place because we already have that trauma-informed layer as far as people feeling secure and safe. I think the problem that's missing is the information that you may need is just not there. My thing is, like she said, like God didn't give me all this information, give her all that information for it to be covered in a different space. So I think it's one of those things where it's getting the support you need has to align with where you're going. And if it's not aligning with where you are, then you have to get it from somewhere else, which may be somebody's office. But you want to add something else? Go ahead, Michelle.
And to piggyback on that, I think we as a people, not just for mental illness, but for physical, we want to make a tea, drink that and go lay down. No, you need to see a doctor. And I think it's the same thing with mental illness. You need to see, go pray as you make your way to the therapist and let those people who God has ordained to work that out for you to help you with that. So I think, just like you said, we're used to a little struggle and we think we got the remedy in our backyard and at the church house. But as we know, some of those pastors need to come with us to the therapist and we will all be, a little better.
Can I piggyback for a second? You know what the truth is, because I have a lot. I work with a lot of people in private practice. I understand that therapy is sometimes a luxury. The waiting list at most places that even accept, Medicaid and other insurance is ridiculous. But my thing is, you don't have, the work can begin before you sit in someone's chair. Cognitive behavioral therapy. I have a self-therapy workbook. My thing is, Therapist Aid is a free website. My thing is, there's assessments that you can take on resilience, trauma, everything else. My thing is, you can start doing the work before you sit in someone's chair. No one knows you better than you know yourself. So my thing is, I think that's another thing us as in our culturally, we don't seek out that information. You know yourself. So now let's start looking at these coping skills. Let's look at, how to control our breaths and do different things, because these things actually work. And then you remix it to make it fit whatever your lifestyle is. But my thing is, those things are there for us to use, and we don't always go out and seek them. So, if your pastor or your best friend, they can't give you what you need. My thing is, most of us have access to the internet or at least a library. So seek out the information. Go ahead, Michelle, add something.
She is absolutely correct.
All right. I think we got time at least for one more question. What do you do if it is a mental emergency for you or someone you know?
Mobile crisis. If you're local, mobile crisis through MUSC, they can have someone out. Because of COVID, I can't tell you how fast they're gonna get there, but they used to get there really fast. Mobile crisis, or you go to the emergency room. They will get you where you need to be. The same way you call 911 if you break an arm or a foot, you call 911. My thing is, health is health, whether it's mental or physical. Call 911. They will dispatch you over to mobile crisis or wherever you need. Treat it the same way you treat a physical ailment.
I want to ask, is autism an emotional illness?
It affects your emotions.
Autism, okay.
And it can. it's such, so you when you hear autism, you always hear people talk about the spectrum. It is so vast. You have kids on the spectrum that struggle to even show emotion. You have some kids that the issues are more, a little bit more cognitive, with just just connecting ideas. It just depends. It's not a one size fit all. That's why they call it the spectrum.
Any
Do
last?
you have any autistic children in your class, or have you had any, Kanisha?
No, I deal with more emotional disabilities, ADHD, things of that nature.
I definitely believe that our police forces need to be better trained to handle mental and emotional issues in individuals, so that they can at least kind of identify things. Because I have heard of people being killed or harmed because the officers don't know what to do. They think that these individuals, especially children, them harm, versus that they have something, a problem emotionally. I don't know what can be done about that, but it's been a concern. And I guess because I have a grandson who has an emotional, well, I don't know what you call it, because he is autistic, but I definitely wouldn't want him to be harmed because someone just doesn't understand him or know him, know what's going on. Because when he sees something bad happen to somebody, like if I hurt my arm, he'll start laughing instead of that. Someone else may just start crying or say, "Oh, I'm sorry for what happened," but he'll just burst out and laugh.
I think so. I guess my response to that would be, I think just like we, see all these bulletins about, signs of a stroke, signs of a heart attack. How do you identify these things? There are certain things that are displayed just physically. I ran a day program for almost 3 years, working with high functioning special needs individuals. My thing is, there are certain effects that you can physically, how to explain it? You get used to just, you can identify those things. So I think we need to talk about identification. So my thing is, a police officer would not arrest somebody as, hopefully not, on the ground clutching their chest or clutching their arm. So we have to figure out a way to make them familiar with, things that can help them identify when they need to handle the person differently. I think as I don't know, it's education. We just need to educate them, because anyone that's worked in a special needs setting, we can kind of, you after a while, it's like second nature. You just know. So I'm pretty sure they can learn as well.
Any last remarks from any of our panelists before we wrap up?
This was fun.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. We are.
Well, we definitely thank each of you guys for being a part of this. And we definitely will try to have another one too, just to make sure we can keep people informed about mental illness, mental health.
Tony Middleton, you have anything you want to say? Tony? Tony Middleton?
He go. He's not there.
All right.
Like mental health matters. Yes, it does.
All right.
Educate. Talk about it tonight at the dinner table. Talk about it tomorrow at lunch. Go to school and talk about it. Just talk about it.
That's a very good comment. All right.
Is he back? He's showing these he's showing these slides, so I know he's somewhere.
Oh Lord.
Tony Middleton.
We're going to thank all of you guys for participating in our AYS program this afternoon. And we encourage you to participate in all of our AYS programs, but we also want you to make sure that you actually check your mental health and make sure there are some things that you need to address, you or your kids. Any last remarks, Joyce?
I'll check my mental health when the sun is shining.
And on that note, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I appreciate you all. We love you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. No, no.